Hello Chessbox Worldwide, get ready for an electrifying encounter right here on the channel. Today, we are diving into a crucial clash from the recent KCB Open Chess Championship 2025. On one side, we have Kenya's own rising star, Aberi Shem, stepping into the ring. On the other hand, is the legendary Copper Eagle Zambian powerhouse International Master Chitumbo Mwali. But this isn't just any game. The Kenyan Chess Federation has reportedly put 30,000 Kenya shillings bounty on IM Mwali, any local player who can secure a draw or win against him. The young Aberi Shem has a massive challenge ahead of him. Can he be the first Kenyan to claim that bounty? This class-creating mismatch is about pride, performance, and serious prize money. Mwali brings the heat and experience, but Shem is hungry for the upset. Let's find out if he can deliver the ultimate knockout with a checkmate. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let's break down this. Welcome to the center of African chess. And in the white pieces, Aberi Shem opened the game with 1d4, knight f6 from the Copper Eagle, c4, c5, trying to enter into the Benoni-like structures, of which Shem declined and played e3, defending the pawn, g6, knight f3, bishop g7, knight c3, short castling, bishop e2, c takes d4, e takes d4, d5 from IM, short castling from Shem, knight c6, b3, opening up for the bishop, bishop f5, and we see bishop b2, queen f5, knight h4, hitting on the bishop. After bishop e6, Shem played c takes d5, but however, knight f3 should have been considered, followed by rook comes to d8, h3, cutting off the knight or bishop entering in, d takes c4, b takes c4. This would be a promising position, but however, after bishop e6, he played c takes d5, and IM played knight takes d5. Now the bishop has been opened up, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5. Now the bishop is also very much hitting on the king side, knight f3, rook comes to d8, queen e1 should have been considered. For example, after queen e1, we could have seen queen b6 followed by rook d1, defending the pawn. Knight b4, bishop c3. In case of knight taking pawn on a2, knight takes pawn a2, now we see that the bishop can go ahead and pin the queen and win the rook on the spot. After rook d8, he played queen c1, and IM played bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, knight takes d4, and after bishop takes d4, IM played rook takes d4, but however, bishop takes d4 should have been considered. For example, after bishop d4, we could have seen rook b1, queen takes a2, bishop takes b7, rook d6, and after bishop f3, rook b8, attacking the pawn on b3, queen e1, attacking the pawn on e7, rook e6, defending, queen d1, bishop b6, and now queen c1, and this would be a dominating position from IM. But after bishop takes b4, we played rook takes d4, and now we see rook b1, b6 from IM, f4 from Shem, defending the pawn, rook d8, g3. But however, queen e3 should have been considered, centralizing the queen to e3, followed by e6, because now the queen was attacking the pawn on e7, rook comes to d1. But however, after rook d8, he played f3, and now we see queen f5, queen c6, trying to bring in the queen and connecting the rooks, bishop h6, rook comes to d1, bishop d2, king g8, defending the bishop on f3, e5, threatening to go ahead and play e4, bishop comes to e2, and in the position we see rook comes c8, hitting on the queen, and after queen f3, requesting for a queen exchange, queen takes f3, bishop takes f3, we see rook c3, putting an eye on the bishop and the pawn on b3, rook b1 defending the pawn, rook c2, bishop d1, rook a2, trying to get a way of controlling the rank, bishop e2, and now we see bishop b4. Now the rook wants to come in, and remember also the bishop on e2 is hanging, bishop c4, bishop c5, the rook and the bishop are going to be hitting on the pawn which is on f2, so rook d2 is very strong. King h1 should have been considered. For example, after king h1, we could have seen king g8, and after rook comes to c1, defending the bishop and intending to go ahead and push b4, and after e4, we see b4 hitting on the bishop, attacking the rook and also hitting on the bishop. So rook takes a4 is first, rook takes a4, b takes c5, and after rook takes c4, pawn takes b6, and after a takes b6, this would be a playable position. But however, after bishop c5, he played rook a1, challenging the rook, rook takes a1, and after rook takes a1, rook d2. Now the rook and the bishop are hitting on the pawn which is on f2, rook f1 defending, king g7, g4, f5, h3 defending the pawn, king f6, bishop comes to g8, hitting on the pawn which is on h7, e4, threatening to go ahead and play e3 because now the pawn is pinned. King g3, moving away, played bishop d6, king g2, and in this position, even the simple f4 would be winning, but I am played h5, defending the pawn, g takes h5, g takes h5, and after h4, he played bishop c5, emphasizing the weakness on f2. King g3, bishop d6 should have been considered, followed by pawn coming into f4, but he played rook d3 check, and after king g2, he played rook d7, trying to bring the rook and win the bishop instantly. Bishop c4, f4 finally, king comes to h3, rook d2, f3 defending the pawn, and this position I am declined and played e3. Now you see rook comes to e2, rook f2 hitting on the pawn on f3, even rook coming to e2 would be considered, but he played rook f1 defending the pawn, e2, and say rook e1, and now we see rook takes f3 check, and after king comes to h2, rook f2 check, king h3, f3, and after king g3 hitting on the rook, king e5, b4, bishop e3, he played f5, and I am played king e4. After move 54, that Shem resigned the game, and Kenya continues to have the bounty extended forward to another round, or to another local Kenyan chess player to win the prize. Thank you so much, and I wish you the best of luck in your games.